How to choose better friends, man to man. Let me say something that might change your life. Not to preach, not because I've got it all figured out, but because I've been around long enough to see patterns repeat. And here's the truth. A good friend is hard to find. Not somebody you laugh with when life is easy, not somebody who shows up when there's something to gain. I'm talking about someone who's still there when the noise dies down. Everybody with your number is not your friend, and I want you to learn that without becoming bitter. You see, friends shape your life. Most of us don't hear that clearly enough. We've all seen it happen. People we grew up with. Good people, fun, easy to be around, full of joy. Then, almost overnight, something shifts. Their behavior changes, their values drift. Their language hardens, less joy, more edge, irritable, cynical, easily offended. That kind of change doesn't happen by accident. It starts when the wrong person gives them permission to be worse. They begin spending time with people of questionable character. At first, it looks harmless. Then slowly, they adapt. And one day, they're no longer who you knew. What makes it dangerous isn't just the change, it's the unpredictability. You don't know what they'll say. You don't know how they'll act. In the wrong moment, with the wrong influence, they become unsteady to be around. And here's the part most people overlook. Your friends shape you, quietly, over time. You start thinking like them, moving like them, normalizing what they normalize. And without realizing it, you shape them too. That's why proximity matters more than most people admit. More friends doesn't mean a better life. Better friends does. Some people aren't against you, they're just not for you. And you usually know the difference. And this isn't about cutting people off in anger, it's about choosing your direction with intention. Because that difference always shows up right when it matters most. You'll notice something as you move through life. When you're doing well, everybody's around. When you're buying food, fixing problems, picking up tabs, being dependable, everybody's your friend. We've all seen it. Professional athletes at the top of the world. Money flowing, fame, status everywhere, spending wild, 20 cars, not collectors, 200 pairs of shoes worn once, jewelry shining so hard it needs its own planet, in the strip club making it rain in a desert, money falling everywhere, then wondering why they still feel dry, everybody eating, everybody celebrating, everybody saying, "That's my guy, life of the party." But then, when the money slows down, when you're tired, when you need help instead of applause, when you finally say, "I'm not okay," suddenly it's quiet. Phones don't ring, texts get respectful, everybody's busy. And listen, that's not something to be angry about. That's something to be aware of. Because now you know who was there for the moment and who's there for you. But then, when the noise fades, that's when you start to see clearly. Because a real friend shows up differently. To recognize a real friend, you should see these traits. A real friend tells you the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Even when they know it might trigger you. He pushes you toward doing the right thing. Not once in a while. Not when it's convenient. Consistently, when it matters most. He holds you to a higher standard without trying to control you, because he sees what you carry inside. He wants to see you win, even when it costs him convenience. A good friend doesn't just comfort you. He motivates you, sometimes without saying much at all. And here's something people don't talk about. Your growth challenges him. Not out of jealousy, but because he looks at your life and thinks, "I can't stay where I am. I need to grow too." That's not competition. That's growth. And here's another sign. You might not talk for weeks, sometimes months. Life gets busy, work happens, families grow. But when you reconnect, you pick up right where you left off. No explanations, no guilt, no scorekeeping, no missed beat. That's trust. That's brotherhood. Let me show you what that looks like in real life. One of my closest friends, James, passed away not long ago. And when I say close, I mean consistent, reliable. Not someone I only checked in with when life was good. He was the person I called when life needed life decisions, to talk about children, being a husband, or when life felt unbearable, when everything was heavy, when my mind felt like it was breaking, when I didn't know what to do, where to go, or even how to feel. He met me there without judgment, always positive, always encouraging, always able to make me laugh, even when smiling felt impossible. He loved seeing other people happy, and somehow he always knew when something was wrong. Sometimes before I even picked up the phone, he was already calling me. We didn't talk every day. Sometimes weeks passed, sometimes months. But when we did talk, he knew exactly where I was. No catching up, no explaining, just presence. There was never a time he didn't take my call, and never a time I wouldn't take his. We talked about life, about divorce, about music, and most importantly, about a relationship with God. He was a prolific songwriter, and I like to believe, whether it's true or not, that some of his best work came out of our conversations, out of truth, out of faith, out of shared humanity. There was one night I called him and couldn't even finish a sentence. I was breaking. He didn't rush me. He didn't interrupt me. He didn't try to fix anything. He just stayed on the line until I could breathe again. And when I finally did, he said something simple. God sees your pain. He will fix your heart. And you know you always have a place with me and my family if you need to get away. No advice, just safety. Years later, I planned to go see him and his beautiful family while he was in the hospital. But the day before I was supposed to travel, his family called and told me he had passed. I was devastated. At first, I was upset with him, and then I realized it was exactly how he would have wanted it, protecting me one last time. Not for me to see him in a hospital bed, not unable to talk, not unable to laugh, but for me to remember him as he was, full of life, joy, and warmth. And when I look back now, I realize something important. If no one else was there for me, he was one of the very few people I could always count on. It was his presence, his example, that kept me on the right road, that helped me believe in myself, that kept a song in my heart toward humanity, that reminded me to serve even when life was hard. From James, I learned accountability without control, self-awareness without shame, the difference between what to tolerate and what I deserve, how to be a better man. And most importantly, I learned that I was never alone as long as I kept asking God to keep working on my heart. I honestly don't know where I'd be if he hadn't stayed in touch, if he hadn't answered those calls. When everything in my life felt unstable, he was the one constant that reminded me who I was. And that's not poetic. That's real. I'm telling you this because it's one of the reasons I'm happy today. It's one of the reasons I'm free. And I want that same joy for you. I want that same legacy for you. We need you. Strong in your values, steady when you need to be, and brave enough to cry without judgment when you need to let it out. That's not weakness. That's a full life. And if you have a friend like that, hold on to them. Tell them you love them. Be that friend to someone else, because that kind of friendship doesn't just change your life. It saves it. So what is really important to remember? Man to man, understand that a real friend will say, I didn't want to bother you, then bother you anyway. That's not disrespect. That's trust. And don't be afraid to tell another man you love him. That doesn't make you weak, it makes you secure. Strength that can't express care isn't strength. It's fear wearing armor. Here's another thing I had to learn. Sometimes you need different friends for different parts of life. One you talk sports with, one you talk life with, one you talk money with, one you talk family, faith, and values with. If you expect one person to be everything, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Not that it cannot happen, but it's very rare and sometimes takes years to develop. You see, clarity keeps friendships healthy. I'm going to tell you something that might not be popular, but I want to be clear and intentional. I have nothing against single men having women as friends. But let's be honest, those friendships can be complicated. Not bad, not wrong, just different. Men often bond side by side, doing something together. Women often bond face to face, talking things through. That difference comes from culture, upbringing, emotional wiring, and biology. Not superiority, not disrespect, just reality. Most of the time, it's manageable until it isn't, especially at certain ages. When testosterone takes the wheel, dopamine hijacks decision-making, and sexual desire gets confused with emotional intimacy. That's when boundaries start to blur. Deal breakers quietly turn into exceptions, and this is where the difference between boys and men shows up. Boys are led by attraction. A man learns to pause, assess, and choose. Attraction never disappears, but discipline, purpose, and self-respect are what bring it under control. That doesn't make anyone bad, it makes us human. And that's why men still need strong male friendships. Spaces with clarity, accountability, trust, and no confusion. Listen, friendship doesn't survive on good intentions. It takes time, effort, showing up, invite people to dinner, create moments, make the call, and don't let work replace connection. Let me say that again because I know how we are. Don't let work replace connection. Don't do it. Manage that carefully, and not in a way that costs you your job, but sometimes choose the dinner, the call, the conversation over one more late night that didn't really need to happen. Work matters, but relationships are what make the work worth it. Be the one who initiates. So how do you know who's actually your friend and who's just draining your time? Here's the hard but loving warning. If somebody brings nothing but drama, chaos, and trouble into your life, that's not a friend. That's a subscription you forgot to cancel. Cut them. No speeches, no exit interview, no PowerPoint presentation titled "Why I'm Moving On." Cut them if they normalize bad habits, joke about your discipline, pull you back to the old version of you, distract you right when you're focused. If they compete instead of collaborate, vent every week but never change anything, expect access without contribution. If they don't respect your boundaries but somehow always remember their own, if they call stagnation loyalty and say things like, "You changed, you left us, please," that's not loyalty, that's emotional peer pressure. Not everyone who walks with you is meant to walk where you're going. That doesn't make them bad people. It means you're growing. And hear me on this part. Don't let bad friendships turn you cold. That's how men end up alone and start calling isolation peace. Here's the real test. If you leave their presence and feel tired, irritated, unfocused, or smaller, you might be hanging around the wrong people. But if you leave feeling clearer, lighter, sharper, more like yourself, that's your answer. Energized or drained, focused or scattered, clear or confused. Your body already knows who supports your flow and who disrupts it. And here's the bigger issue. We're living in a time where real community is disappearing. Fewer people attend church. Small groups fade out. The places where connection used to happen naturally are thinning out. Now it's screens, comments, notifications, and independence without connection slowly turns into loneliness. And nobody thrives alone. If you don't believe me, here is a fact. Most people on their deathbed say the same things. I wish I had spent more time with the people I love. I work too much. I wish I had stayed in touch. I wish I had said I love you more. Not coworkers, not emails, people. So hear me clearly. You don't need everybody. You need your tribe. And if you want good friends, be one. Because friendship isn't found, it's built. Talking from one man to another. Don't be afraid to love, don't be afraid to trust, and don't confuse being alone with being strong. I've lived long enough to know the difference. That is the right perspective.